Hey, welcome back to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces today. So we're all still hiding out at home, trying to avoid the coronavirus, and so here's another idea for an art project you can do while you're stuck at home. This book gave me the idea. It reminded me of something I used to do way back when I was in grade school, and that is making patterns that are very geometric or mathematical. So now this book is really cool because it takes lots of different mathematical concepts like knots and different patterns and different mathematical equations and fractals and things, and it shows different ways that math can be used to create patterns. But anyway, that just reminded me of some things I used to do way back when I was a kid. So what you'll need for this is a sheet of graph paper and some kind of a pen or a pencil. To make it more visible on the camera, I'm going to use an ultrafine Sharpie, but you could totally use a pencil or a ballpoint pen or anything, really, whatever you got. And if you don't have graph paper, you can take 2 sheets of regular lined paper and sort of put one of them horizontal at 90-degree angles to each other. And one thing I like to do is, when I'm making my own graph paper, is line up one of the blue lines on one page with the vertical pink line on the other page, and then tape it together. If you're going to do that, then you can kind of see these lines underneath these lines, and you can make perfect squares that way. I don't recommend trying to use a sheet of copy paper for this, because if you draw your own grid, then it's going to get kind of confusing. Okay, so now that I've zoomed in here, what we're going to start with is we're going to make sort of a corner, and you can make it as long as you want in each direction, but it needs to be the same in each direction. So maybe I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares down, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares over. And you notice that I kind of stopped at each corner and left a little dot there. What I'm going to do is connect the dots, but I'm not going to connect corner to corner. I'm instead going to be going more up. So I want to connect the bottom here to the... No, not the bottom one. The bottom is already connected to the top, right? By this whole long line. So I want to connect the next dot to the next dot. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to use a ruler for this. If you don't have a ruler, you can use anything that's straight. We're not going to use the measurements here. We're just going to use the straight edge. So like if you have an envelope, you could use the straight edge of that. Put your pen or pencil against the edge of an envelope. Or another sheet of paper would work. Maybe if it's too thin, you could fold it a couple of times. Maybe if you have like a box of crayons or something, or markers, you could use the edge of that as a straight edge. But whatever you use, we're going to skip the bottom dot and skip the left dot. And so we're going to connect the next to the next. So let's start here to here. There, and you see how that is a very steep diagonal line that connects. If I numbered these points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points down. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 points across. Then you see I'm connecting 8 and 2, which add up to 10, right? So what I'm going to do is try to add up to 10. So 7 goes with 3, adds up to 10. 6 and 4 adds up to 10. I just wrote 4 twice. That's a 5. So you get the idea. So I'm going to make 7 and 3 go together. And you can see how that line leans in a little bit more than the other one did. 6 goes to 4. 5 goes to 5. 6 goes to 4. And you can see how this is starting to make a curve along this edge. And it's going to be a pretty darn smooth curve. Now the more points you do with this trick, the more curvy it will look, the less like straight lines it'll look, and the more this right here will look like a curve. Now this is actually the trick that computers use when they're making three-dimensional graphics. They'll take a curve and they'll break it down into a bunch of straight lines, and the more straight lines they break it down into, the smoother that curve will look. So I've made a plus sign instead of just one corner, and what I want to do is this in all 4 of these corners. And you can do it with a ruler or without. I'm just going to do them kind of quick here. So you can see that corner looks kind of like that corner, just turned and not quite as big. And because it's smaller, because it doesn't have as many points, it looks a little bit more straight-liney. It doesn't look quite as much like a curve as that does. So the bigger you do this, the more curvy it will look. But the shorter you do it, the easier it is to do without a ruler. Now I'm going to mirror that over here. There, and you can see how the 2 of those come together to make almost like the point of a star. And we're going to do it again. Now there, that looks pretty dope right there. I can't count the number of times I made this exact same design way back when I was in like 3rd grade, 5th grade, 2nd grade. I don't know when I started, but I was real little when I started doing things like this with graph paper. Now let's see what else we can do. That's using this sort of concept of, you know, 1 down to 8 across, 2 down to 7 across, right? Making your way around both sides. What if we do, you know, something a little different? Okay, so I've got a box. Now, what I want to do inside this box is think about symmetry in 2 different directions. So I'm going to draw a line of symmetry halfway down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 2 different lines of symmetry. I could even go as far as making 2 more lines of symmetry diagonally. It really depends on how exotic, how detailed you want to be with this. But then the idea is, wherever your lines of symmetry are, whatever you draw in one section, you draw exactly the same thing flipped over in the next section. So for starters, for simplicity's sake, a line of symmetry down the middle. Whatever I draw on one side, I need to flip over the line and draw the same thing on the other side. So maybe I'll cut the corner, right? Diagonally across the corner. Well, now I need to flip it over this line. So if it's in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th square away from the line, then on this side it needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares away from the line. I'll draw the same diagonal. Okay? And if I draw a square here, that is 1, 2, 3 squares away from the symmetry line, 1, 2, 3 squares away from the line of symmetry. And whatever I do on one side, I just flip it and do the same on the other side. That's got 1 empty space between the triangle and the line of symmetry. So 1 empty space here. It's 3 squares up, 3 squares down. There we go. Maybe I'll draw a circle on that corner. That's 1 corner away from the line of symmetry, so 1 corner away over here. Draw a circle. So this is with just 1 line of symmetry. See how easy that is with just 1 line of symmetry? You just 1 thing on this side, and then flip it to the other side. See how that flips over? This one goes down to the left, this one goes down to the right. You just got to flip it over that line. things do get more complicated when you add more lines of symmetry. Now, if I'm using all 4 lines of symmetry, then anything I draw in one of these triangles, I have to draw in all of these triangles, and I have to flip it over each line. Not just copy it, but flip it. So, for example, this line goes right. But if I'm looking at it with this, line of symmetry in perspective, then I need to flip it over that line. So if I'm looking at this line of symmetry, this line goes diagonally away from that line of symmetry. Now when I flip it, it needs to go diagonally the opposite direction. Then when I look at this line of symmetry, this line is going to flip over it and just go vertical. This one is going to flip over this line of symmetry and go here. And then both of these lines could also flip over this long line of symmetry to go here. And then these two could flip over this long line of symmetry to go here. Anyway, so there's a lot of things with symmetry that you can do on graph paper. What else can we do? Another thing we can do on graph paper is make pixel art, where each square has to be one color for the whole square. And you put different squares together to make a picture. Different colors. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with a brown. And I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to make some feet. So let's see. Maybe, yeah, let's say make there's a foot, right? It's 4 squares on the bottom and then 3 on top of it. Let's fill it all the way in. These are brown. And then we're going to leave some space between the 2 feet, maybe 4 squares between them. Let's make another foot the same but symmetrical. See, I flipped it again. Color those all the way in. Notice that this stair steps up because each square has to be colored all the way in. It's not like a diagonal line or a curve. There, those look like feet, right? Kinda? Maybe? Maybe. Alright, next we're going to make some blue overalls. And let's see, the legs are going to be kind of at an angle. They're not going to be straight up. They're going to be at an angle. So I'm not going to go straight up from here. I'm going to kind of angle my way out. I don't want to draw a diagonal though. I want to do that by making sort of this kind of shape. So it's 2 blocks up and then 4 blocks up. We'll color that all the way in. And then again, kind of symmetrical on the other side. Now this is not the complete section of the legs, but it's a good start. We're going to connect them somewhere here in the middle and then kind of have overalls go up above. This is like denim overalls. So let's sort of connect with that shape. So that's 2 blocks going vertical, 2 blocks going vertical, and then 2 blocks in between them to connect them. And then let's make another layer of blocks here that's blue. Now here there's going to be some buttons on the overalls, so I'm actually going to switch to a yellow and make a box here that's yellow and a box here that's yellow. And then the boxes between those two buttons are going to be blue. Alright, so we got the pants. These are buttons on the bottom of the overalls. We're going to have overalls going up. And the shape of that, let's see. Let's come in one box, leave an empty box on the next row here. We'll make 4 boxes across that kind of cover up those buttons. And then on both sides, let's do 2 boxes up. 2 boxes up. There, so we got some overalls. Now, let's see, this character we're making here is going to be wearing a red shirt under his overalls. So this whole 4 squares here in between the overall thingies can be red. And then from the top here, we're going to count out 2 squares. And then the row under that is going to be 3 squares. This is kind of going to be the arms. And then the row under that is going to be 4 squares. And then under that, we're only going to do 1 square. We're going to leave space for a hand. So it's like a red shirt, and then there's going to be a hand here. And we'll make this symmetrical onto the other side. So that's 1 square here, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. Then 3, then 2. So that whole shape. Now I'm going to switch back to my yellow and make... Of course, obviously you can tell by now this is Super Mario, right? I'm going to make Mario's fists, his hands, from the end of his arm. I'm going to come straight down 3 blocks, then over to the pants. And this whole area, 3 blocks, and 1 block, is all going to be yellow. If you had a lighter tan, you could use that here instead of the yellow, but I don't, because I've just got these classic ultra clean washable Crayola markers, which is just like 8 colors, that's it, you know. So it's like I don't have sort of a tan color, so I'm just going to use yellow for his skin. It's the closest thing I have. And then we're going to make his head on top. Now he's going to have, again, yellow for his skin because that's what I have. You could use a tan if you have one. And his mustache is going to be black. And his hair is going to be brown, and his hat is going to be red. So let's see, we're going to start by counting in 1 square from the arm, and that whole row right there is going to be yellow. Now, his head's going to be pointing that way, so we're going to need to leave some space for like his mustache and his eyes and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to the left side and count out 4 squares. Notice that that leaves 2 blank there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and swap out to the black and make his mustache. Those 2 empty squares we just left, and then 2 more. So like a long rectangle, but then also skip a square and then 1 above it. That's going to be his mustache. Looks kind of long, but he's going to have a big old nose hanging out in front of that too. As a matter of fact, we can go ahead and draw that nose. It's going to be not just these 2 boxes, but also 1 more sticking out in front. And then on the layer above that, still 3 boxes, but move them to the left so that they are over the top of that mustache. And then on the next layer, just 1 square above the mustache. I'm going to switch back to the black one last time to get his eye. Where his nose is, these two squares here not touching but catty corner to the mustache. These two squares together, that's his eye. Now let's finish up his face. This square under his eye above his mustache and two more squares to the left of it. Those are part of his face. He's going to have sideburns here, that's his hair. We will see a little bit of his ear over here in just a second, but let's finish up this part of his face first. Next row up, we have 1, 2, 3 boxes, so you see how that overlaps by just one box. And then the top of the eye, count 2 boxes over, like that. Okay? Now, before we switch and do his hair, there are 2 boxes that are going to be his ear. And notice that they are catty corner to his cheek. Right? This is his cheek, catty corner to that. Not adjacent, not touching the edge, but touching the corner. 2 squares going up, that's his ear. Now we're going to switch back to the brown, the same brown we used on the shoes, and we're going to make his hair. Underneath his ear he has 1 square of hair. To the left of his ear he has 2 squares of hair. The square right above his ear is hair. And all of these squares between his face and his ear that sort of make a C shape, those are hair. And now all that's left on our Super Mario pixel art is to make his red hat. In my case, it's going to go over top of my symmetrical designs here. I thought I had enough room, but evidently I didn't, even starting at the very bottom of my paper. I should have planned that out better. If you start right above his hair, that square is red, and that goes across 2 squares past his face. Okay, so it doesn't quite come out as far as his nose. Then we're going to count 1, 2, 3 empty squares and make the 4th square red. On this side we're going to count 1 empty square and make the next square red, and then all the ones in between are red. And there, we've made our Super Mario pixel art. So there are all sorts of things you can do with pixel art. There are all sorts of things you can do with symmetry. There are all sorts of ways you can put these little thingies together to create interesting little starburst things. There's lots of things you can do with graph paper if you're bored and have some extra time.